Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm meadsy69. Welcome back to the channel. Now, in today's video, we are going to look at two tanks. Yes, two tanks that are similar, but a little bit different. And you could either choose one of these tanks to, you've got to choose either the Ferdinand or the Jagdpanther 2. So we're going to compare both tanks and we're going to talk about which tank I prefer and why I prefer, and then we're going to you guys can tell me what tank you prefer. And I mean, you might not prefer any of them, you might think they are both absolutely useless. But first up, we're going to look at the Jagdpanther 2. Now, I never really enjoyed the Jagdpanther 2, and to be honest, I didn't really want to play it when I was new into the game. But then I did actually play it. I've spent some time with it, and I was actually very surprised how good this tank actually is. It is a very, very super, I wouldn't say super good. It's a good tank. It obviously has its downfalls and it has its pluses. Now, the pluses is it is actually a really, really quick tank for what it is. It's a tank destroyer. It's a very, very quick tank with very good DPM, but it has literally no armor whatsoever. So you've got to bear that in mind in making that decision on how you play in the game. Now, personally, with this tank, I like sitting at the back because you do have very good DPM. I mean, look, 9.17 seconds on the reload. If you're using adrenaline, you can get that to around 7.8, something like that, which is quite low for a 460 alpha gun. And then later on in the game, kind of like a grill or something like that, I do play this tank like an Object 263, but with the 263, it's like a YOLO wagon, and you've actually got armor. This tank, you don't have any armor whatsoever. You've got none on the front, you've got none on the sides, none whatsoever. So you have to bear that in mind when you are playing this tank. So personally, as I've just said, I do like to sit behind the team, not too far. I don't like to sit like a proper tank destroyer. I do like to sort of go with my team but sit behind them, so you're not getting focused, because you've got over 3000 DPM. If you can get some nice shots off on the enemy team without them looking at you, you really can bully them. So this game, I mean, we're on 3.8k damage. We've done and that was easy, and we wasn't playing it out the back. We was, again, front line-ish, but behind my team, and that is where I find this tank is played best. Now, ignore this shot that I'm about to do. No idea why I just did that, but yeah, we kind of imagine if I were a little lost because of that. I think if I was the last person alive, I would have took my time. But, you know, it is what it is. We do die, but we still managed to get 3,800 damage, which is pretty good, and we've done that very, very easily. So we managed to get 2 kills. We only blocked 240, so again, we was lucky to block that. You can't rely on the armor profile with this tank at all. The best thing is the gun and the speed of this thing, because it is a very quick tank. So we're going to have a look at the stats on the tank, see if there's anything I would change, if there's anything you guys would change. Personally, I probably wouldn't change too much. It's got the armor profile. The only thing I would like to see it have is maybe a little bit more gun depression. But yeah, the speed's absolutely fine. I don't mind it having armor, because instead of the armor, you've got the speed, so you can easily get out of there in a bad situation. So you've got 1150 hit points. As I've said about the armor, 104 millimeters on the front, which is pretty much nothing. Side 60 to rear 42. Now, the DPM is 3018. Now, I am running this with the rammer to up that DPM, because I do think the penetration is fine as it is. So the reload is 9.14 seconds, penetration 246 on your standard AP and 311 on your APCR. So I think that is absolutely perfectly fine. The only reason I don't really run it with the calibrated shells is because it's got APCR. You're not going to improve it too much. You have 460 alpha, so you can get above sort of 500 alpha. for some of your shots, and because of the 460, most of your shots will be in the 400s. Occasionally you might get below 400, like 380, 390, but most of your shots will be in the upper end of the 400s, sometimes even the 500 rolls. And you can also get 600 alpha on your HE. Aim time I don't think is too bad at 3.4, and the dispersion I don't think is too bad at 0.317. It does have 6 degrees of gun depression, and the speed on the thing is what, 50 kilometers per hour, which I think is absolutely fine, and you don't need to change the speed whatsoever. However, in reverse it does only go 12, so it's not quick in reverse, but going forward is one of the fastest tanks in tier 8. So moving on, we have the Ferdinand. Now, with the Jagdpanther 2, it's got no armor, but it has speed. Now, with this tank, it's got armor, but it doesn't have speed. So basically, if you want to play the Jagdpanther with armor, then this is the tank. Now, the gun is almost the same. However, the DPM is slightly less. The armor profile, even though it's supposed to have armor, because there's a load of flat the armor's pretty flat, it is quite easy to penetrate this tank. There's so many weak points on this tank, and that's for me the biggest downfall of the tank. Now, if that was stronger, it would be an enjoyable tank to play, but currently as it is, I don't really enjoy playing this tank. Yes, you can get bounces, definitely more bounces in this than you can in the Jagdpanther 2, but you still can't really rely on the armor profile because there's just too many weak points. I mean, you've got the front plate, yeah, okay, the sort of front bottom plate, the top bit of the bottom plate is quite strong, but the bottom plate, the lower part, is quite weak, and the middle is also quite weak because they're just flat. If people can't penetrate you, they're just going to switch to APCR, and they're going to be able to penetrate you nice and easy, like very, very easy. And on top of that, you've got either side of the gun as well that is easily pennable. So I would give it more armor. I would definitely give this tank more armor. Now, this is what I'm going to show you. Like, we're getting bullied at the minute by an E25. Yes, he's up there and he's not bouncing a single shot on me. No matter what my angles are, you can see I'm trying to go in at a different angle. Yes, he's sort of facing down on me, but we couldn't even bounce a shot from that E25, like nothing. We bounced one shot at the moment, and that's 310, and other than that, we've just been ripped apart. We've absolutely been ripped apart. We haven't really bounced anything, so I would expect to bounce more in this tank, because it is a tank that's supposed to have armor. So personally, if I wanted to change this tank, I would give it more armor. I don't mind about the lower DPM. It does have lower DPM than the Jagdpanther. I don't mind about the speed, but because you don't have that DPM, you don't have that speed, you're supposed to have something else, and that's supposed to be the armor, and this tank just hasn't got it, in my opinion. It does lack again, this is my opinion. You guys might go and drive it and you might bounce 3,000 damage, but in my opinion, I do think the armor profile can be upped a little bit. I'm not asking for it to be mega strong either. If I think they could either make the lower part very strong and leave the upper part as it is, or leave the lower part as it is but make the upper part super strong. You know, I think they need to make one of them better. I don't think they can make both of them better, because I do think then that will be OP. But yeah, it does have lower DPM, lower speed, a little bit more armor profile, but it doesn't do the job. In my opinion, it doesn't do the job that it's set out to do. So yeah, I mean, this game we're on 2,600 damage. The gun is still fine as it is. The gun on both of these tanks is actually really good. I do love the gun on both of these tanks. What tank do I prefer? I definitely prefer the Jagdpanther 2. I definitely do prefer the DPM, the speed on the thing, the penetration I think is great. I think overall, the overall package, the Jagdpanther 2 is a much more enjoyable tank to play. This can be a little bit boring because you can't really play frontline because of the armor. And if they did up the armor profile, then you can play it more frontline, more like a kind of heavy tank than a tank destroyer. But as it is at the moment, this tank is only good if you play it as a tank destroyer. However, with the Jagdpanther 2, you can play it with your mediums, you can play it just behind your heavies, or if you really wanted to, you can play that like a tank destroyer as well. And then later on in the game, you could then use your speed to get into it and just clean up the enemy tanks. But we still managed to get 3k damage very, very easy there. And they're not bad tanks. They're really not bad tanks, but they're not, either tank is not tanks I would sit there and think, you know what, I want to play the Jagdpanther 2, or I want to go and play the Ferdinand. None of these tanks do it for me, but they can still be enjoyable if you play them right. So the Ferdinand, we were just going to see here. So let's just get to the stats. Wrong bit. Click on the tank. So the hit points, 1400 hit points. So straight away, 300 hit points more than the Jagdpanther 2, which isn't bad. The whole armor, 200 millimeters, but again, it's flat. The armor profile is flat. DPM 2732, so almost 300 different than the Jagdpanther 2. The reload time is 10, so again, that's 1 second more on the reload than the Jagdpanther 2. The armor penetration is pretty much the same at 246 and 311, and you've got 65 on your HE. You've again, the alpha is exactly the same at 460 on your AP, 390 on your APCR, and 600 on your HE. Aim time is more at 4.1, but the dispersion on this thing is actually very, very good at 0.285. It's got the gun depression isn't great, again at 8, but the speed again is 30 kilometers an hour. So it's not the slowest, but it's also not the quickest. So what tank out of these do you prefer? Do you prefer the 30 or do you prefer the Jagdpanther 2? I'm going for the Jagdpanther 2 just because it is more enjoyable to play with the speed and the DPM of the thing. Again, the penetration, in my opinion, you don't need to run it with calibrated shells on both tanks. I think the penetration on both of them is good enough. And if you can't pen them on AP, you'll probably most likely be able to penetrate them on APCR. So I'm going for the Jagdpanther 2. What tank are you going for? What tank do you prefer? Do you hate both of them, or do you like the Jag, or do you like the 30, or do you like them both? Let me know in the comments below. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, guys. If you did, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye for now. With